Be sure to subscribe for more content.
What is up, ladies and gents? Welcome to the BigBC Finance Channel, and I hope you're having a very lovely day today. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Luna Classic, where I predict the price to go to in the near future, as well as some key levels and some key patterns I'm looking out for. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, if you're bullish on Luna Classic, be sure to smash that like button for me. So without further ado, let's get those annotations here on Luna Classic and see what is going on with the price. So first things first, in the next few hours from making this video, we're going to have that Binance announcement about how much Luna Classic is going to be burnt. Now, in my last video, I said that I do think there's going to be a short-term dump because of what happened last week. We saw the burn announcement, and obviously some people's expectations were really high, so we saw a sell-off after the news came out. And again, we're going to see probably a similar sell-off, probably not of this magnitude here, but we're going to see some selling pressure because, you know, I think the amount of Luna Classic tokens burnt is going to be less than what has been anticipated. So, you know, last week we saw 5.5 billion Luna Classic tokens burnt, and the main issue was that was over an 11-day period, and that encompassed some large trading volume. And now the trading volume is smaller, as we can see here on the day chart. For example, if I just hide all my drawings there, you can see that the volume has been on this downtrend. So, you know, the first burn took place where this volume was like this, and now, as you can see, if I zoom in even more, you can see that the volume has been on this downtrend from the 2nd to the 8th of October, which is the observation period where Binance is going to burn today on the 10th of October. So that's something that I'm very wary of. The trading volume is down, and it's a shorter observation period of 7 days rather than 11 days. So I do expect the burn to be smaller than what people were expecting, and I do expect the price to drop. So in the short term, we could see the price continue to rise up a little bit. Of course, we saw this triangle breakout here yesterday. So if you managed to trade that, first of all, congratulations. We saw something that looked a little bit like this, that kind of followed the purple annotations that I made on Saturday, but not quite. We saw a triangle that looked like this. We had a price target of this distance here, and it was pretty much met. You can see that that's the first test of the resistance of this blue triangle, and the first test of the support being the distance that is our price target. We just move that ruler to where the price broke out, which is here, and we can see the price basically touched that to a T. So a very, very tradable triangle that was. So if you did trade that, again, congratulations. But now we're coming down from that peak, and I do think our first test of this, our first support level is definitely this purple line here. This is our bullish purple line that we want to remain above in order to be bullish over the next few days. And that's because it is heading in this upwards direction. So for example, if we'd been following this red line instead, like this, then of course that's bearish because, you know, it's heading in the downwards direction. So this is why I badly want to keep this purple support as our support moving forwards, because it's going in a bullish direction, and if we do lose it, I do think we're going to be heading in a more bearish direction in the future. So this is the first level I'd really like to keep if the price continues to go down. Of course, it can also continue to go up as well. If we can't hold the support line, then my next line, in order for Luna Classic to be somewhat bullish still, is to at least hold this 27.7 cents region now. And I really want to hold this 27.7 cents level to be bullish on Luna Classic, because this represents a key level where most of the liquidity starts to fade away. So here on Luna Classic, there's been a lot of buyers in this region here between 27.7 cents and around 32 cents here, as we can see with this volume profile tool. So if we drag this across like this, we can see that most of the bars represent where most of the volume is, so where most of the investors are buying and selling Luna Classic. So at these levels, we've got a lot of buyer support, but if we drop below down to these levels here where the bars are very small, then that indicates that there's very little buyer support. So if the price gets down to this level, the chances are there's not many buyers to push the price back up, and therefore we can continue to fall further. And 27.7 cents represents to me an area where the volume starts to decrease, the liquidity starts to decrease. So when we get down to this level, I'd expect the price to free fall a little bit further. So 27.7 cents is a key level for me. If the price gets down to this level and we can hold it as a resistance like this, then we have a good chance of being able to go back in a bullish direction. And of course, this week is going to be quite an interesting week because we've got a lot of economic data coming out. We've got the inflation rate coming out on Wednesday, for example. So we could see Luna Classic really react to that as well. So if we can hold this 27 cents level, that'd be really good. But if not, then our next target will be the support line here. So this red line that's going down, as long as we can just bounce off it like that, then we'll be free falling at a slower rate, which obviously is bearish, but not as bearish as the alternative there. So those are the three levels I'm really looking for. in terms of the price falling down from this Binance announcement that I'm predicting. But of course, we could also see, I think the most likely scenario is that we do fall down to this support line and continue to be supported by it. And that's what I'm looking for mostly. Of course, if we do fall below that, I'm going to be shorting from this point here. To my expected price level of 27.7 cents. But if we can be supported by this price level, then what I'd be mostly looking for is what the price does within a triangle that looks like this. So in fact, if we just make that a little bit neater and just get rid of everything, we can see that we have a corrective fan here. So we had a very steep resistance here that was pointing downwards, which had been respected for a good part of a week. But when we did cross it, we saw this price go up like this. We saw a nice healthy pump from this resistance here, meaning that this really steep downwards resistance had been broken through and we were following a more shallow resistance. And again, from one of my previous videos, I drew this as our next line of resistance. And when we broke through it, we saw a similar pump as well. So this is the corrective fan theory, suggesting that, whenever you're bound by a support or resistance that's very steep, often that's not sustainable. And what results is a resistance or support that's a lot more sustainable by being more shallow. So what I think we could be seeing here as well is that now we're bound by this resistance here that has two tests. And I'd like to see the price touch it a few more times in the near future in order for it to be a more reliable resistance for me. But generally speaking, this is something I'm generally looking out for as well. So if we do see the price bounce off the support there, then I'd expect the price to go and do something like this and consolidate basically in a pattern that looks like this. And of course, use this resistance and use this line here as a place of resistance for the price to bounce in between. And of course, if we do see that, then we're going to see a very tradable pattern form here where there's a consolidation and a subsequent breakout similar to the breakout we saw like this. And of course, I make daily videos on this channel, so I will post updates if I do see a pattern that looks like that. So in the meantime, this is what I'm looking for, a drop down to this kind of level here after the news is announced, just by virtue of the buy the news, sell the rumor that we saw here in the past as well on Luna Classic. We saw this price run up for the first news events from Binance, and now we're seeing that just on a smaller scale, I believe. So we're going to see a drop off, but not as harsh as that. And I think we will get down to this level here, the 29.1, 29.2 cents level. Of course, if we continue below that level, then I will short down to around 27.7 cents. Because that's my next key level. And of course, I'll leave some of the position in if we do not get supported here, because I do think the fall is going to be a lot larger if we cannot hold 27.7 cents. Now, if we do get held by this level, then I think we're going to be bouncing within this region here, at least for the next few days. But what happens in those next few days will be dictated with what the market does. So I'm going to be heavily looking at what Bitcoin does here, because of course, large price movements in Bitcoin are often quite correlated to what altcoins do, such as Luna Classic. So, if we see a large pump or a large dump in Bitcoin, then we will see that in Luna Classic as well. So I'm keeping an eye on what Bitcoin is doing over the next few days. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the stock market as well, because the stock market will have an influence on what Bitcoin is doing, and therefore Luna Classic will be indirectly correlated with that. And so it's going to be a very interesting week this week, basically with those economic indicators coming out. That could really swing the markets, and it could also really swing Luna Classic here. Although, in fairness to what happened to Luna Classic back on the 13th of September, when the inflation data came out, we did unexpectedly well here on Luna Classic. So we saw Bitcoin basically drop this whole amount after that inflation data came out. So that was around a 12% drop there on Bitcoin. But on Luna Classic, we actually saw Luna Classic price go up around 20% in the same time period. So it looks like Luna Classic's a little bit more immune to inflation data than Bitcoin is. But nonetheless, I'm still going to be observing what Luna Classic does because of the volatility that will probably follow this inflation report coming out on Wednesday. So all eyes on that as well. But of course, like I say, I'll make some more videos on Tuesday and Wednesday when that inflation data comes out. So really looking forward to seeing what happens there. But in summary, I'm still fairly bullish here on Luna Classic. Obviously, I'm bullish in the long term, but in the short term, as long as we can be held up by the support line that we have here in purple, then I'm still short-term bullish as well. If we do drop below that, then the key level I'm looking for is 27.7 cents. But if we can't be held by that, I do think there's going to be a steep free fall down in price there. I don't know how far it's going to go, but my next guess would be the red line here at around 26 cents. And if we can be held up by this support, this purple support here, then I'd expect a consolidation as well. That looks something like this. So that's all I have to say really in this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, be sure to like. And otherwise, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next.